everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Risky Rollers podcast. I'm Dalton, and I'm joined here by Locky.
Hello, everybody!
And today we're going to discuss some of the attractions of alternate games outside of the GW sphere.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one. This one's cool.
Yeah, it's a bit interesting. I've been playing a few different games for a while, and Locky's starting to branch out a bit. We've got some talk about Ninth Age fantasy battles, as well as Infinity, some of the Star Wars games, a little bit on Maelstrom's Edge, and just a bit of general chat about the wider world of tabletop war games.
Yeah, very exciting.
So before we get into all of that, I'll just mention once again, and we'll hear more about them later, you can go to Dice Arcade and use the code RiskyRollers for a discount on any wargaming products, not just GW and not just Dice. And you can hit us up on Discord to chat, or Patreon if you want to be amazing and even more so than you are already, and help us out. And check us out on Instagram to see what we've been up to, including a bunch of models for a lot of these games we're about to mention.
Yeah, 100%. As well with the Discord, guys, jump on, come to the Discord, come chat. We've got a fair few new people that have joined the Discord, and it's becoming this ever evolving, environment, community space to go nuts and share your stuff and play games. And we're organising Space Marine games, as in the video game.
That's right.
Yeah, like little raid nights and stuff with everyone. So it's a bit hard because some of the new people are not from our time zone. So it's going to be an interesting one to have to navigate. But yeah, no, jump on. It's great. It's a really. I'm sorry, I'm waffling a bit. It's a very good, nice community. I love it.
It is. Everyone's real cool and chill on there. We've got some new painters, some old painters, and just it's great.
So, what draws us to play other games, Dalton?
What draws us to play other games? Well, there's a whole bunch of different things, and I think a lot of the time it'll end up depending on the game itself. So just to I suppose to clarify, do you currently play any other games, or do you just play 40k? And have you played other games in the past?
Quick answer, no. Obviously, you and I, and people that are following us would know that we've been branching into Infinity, and you and I have been playing games of Infinity, which is amazing. We'll get to that later. But overall, not really. It's pretty much been 40k. So I played like 4th edition. I think it was so. Fantasy's always been edition ahead of 40k, hasn't it?
It's been several.
So yeah, I don't know which edition, but when I was playing 40k, I was jumping between Fantasy and 40k. So around 3rd edition, whatever edition of Fantasy that was, I was playing that. And then I did some Gothic, Battlefleet Gothic.
Right.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So still very much in that GW.
Yes, still Games Workshop. Still Games Workshop. But so because at the time that was like the boom of it was the tail, really the big start of the boom of the video game era, around that. Yeah. So I got pulled away and got pulled into video games. It's like it was a renaissance for me, I guess. Yeah. Coming back and exploring D&D when I was 25, and now branching into these other games. So I don't really have a lot of experience with it. You've got a lot more experience than I do, I think, with a lot of this.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a wider experience with it. It's interesting you say you played Fantasy, because it's definitely something that I was right into right at the tail end of 8th edition Fantasy, as well as. So
what year's that? You're gonna have to give me years with that one.
Off the top of my head, I'm gonna say like 2014 to 2016, around there.
Right. Okay.
It would have been the same, roughly the same year or just before Age of Sigmar launched, because it was right then.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So it was before Sigmar, while Fantasy was still a thing. But as well as that, I've never played Battlefleet Gothic, unfortunately. Although now that I think about it, I do have a whole bunch of Epic models from the old Warhammer 40k Epic game. I've even painted some of those up. I think I've got some Eldar or an Eldar Falcon in a little tiny little 6mm scale up on my Instagram somewhere.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you did. You did post that. Yeah, with all like the little tanks and the other bits and pieces. Did you? You did a few, didn't you? I think you did a few.
I painted some Space Marines, and I think I painted a single Eldar tank just to try out how painting at that scale worked. And I'm definitely keen to get back to it at some point. I've got a couple of new blisters of Eldar tanks and flyers and things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Don't look. As much as I say I played it when I was 10. Yeah, so don't ask me to like remember or like how it all went down or anything. All I know is that it was fun, and I think it was fun because it was same but different. You know,
right? Yeah,
and I think
it fits within the same universe. You're not learning a whole new.
I don't think necessarily universe. I actually think more in terms of, I'm gonna go, like more from a war games point of view. Same but different in the sense of like there's an objective or there's things I've got to kill and I have a tool set or a certain amount of resources that I have to use, and then I have to use those adequately to achieve the goal or whatever it is that we're doing. Right. So I think
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's one of the reasons that I tended to branch into these other games. Of course, Warhammer Fantasy had a bunch of lore as well. That was interesting, but it was more of, I played 40k and it was great fun. This would have been, I'm gonna say, like 5th, 6th edition 40k, maybe early 7th.
Yeah, which was the real bad days, right, of 40k.
It was getting there. It was getting there.
Yeah.
With rules bloat and
the weird like
super like unbalanced rules and stuff.
Because they had it's not force organizations. What did they call them?
Force organization charts, and then they came out with formations.
Formations. That's it. Formations. That's the thing that they had. Yeah, which was busted.
Yeah. But it would have been right around then, and I wasn't at that point in time. I wasn't super affected by all of that. It was just that I was just playing 40k, and I saw people playing fantasy, and I think I asked a GW employee to give me one of their like tutorial games with the Island of Blood kit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is fantastic. It's an entirely different setup and system, and sure, there's similarities about, you roll dice and you move minis, but it just felt different to play, and it was fascinating and great fun.
It was very different. It was like I got drawn to it from, again, there is a lot of tropes connecting to video games here because I'm a mass video game nerd as well. So, but playing medieval Total War and playing Age of Empires, and they were released. Age of Empires 2 was 98, right? So 98, and then 2000 I got into 40k. So they're all in and around the same 2-3 year period, and the structure of more medieval Total War is why I was like, okay, fantasy is really interesting. You had to, how you positioned your models in terms of the ranks, and then consolidation was really important, and then like there was so many more steps compared to 40k. The
game was often won or lost before anything died.
It
was all about movement and trying to bait your opponent into committing and back and forth.
It actually felt like what I imagine that an actual kind of war game would be, in terms of say like a military, like if someone was at military school or whatever, who was teaching someone about here's a scenario that happened, it was some battle in history or whatever, and like this is how you'd play it out, because those things do matter. Like how your ranks back in those times, those ranks did form cohesion, and it mattered in terms of how much ground you covered and how you could get outflanked by cavalry and those kinds of things, or where you positioned your pikemen was important. And all that it did. I mean, that was real world, right? So like that.
And I mean, a lot of the fantasy rules and stuff back when it was first written, it really stemmed from how historical war games were played and still are, for that matter. Because of that, that was really all that was around at the time they were writing Warhammer. I mean, that's all they could draw from.
And I think that contrast was really cool, because you had 40k, which was this it is what it is, lore-wise and whatever. But just from a pure gameplay mechanic point of view, that's what drew me into fantasy, was just this. And there was something cool about seeing the square bases. I loved the square bases.
Yeah.
It just fit the medieval, or not medieval, sorry, the fantasy kind of, sword and shield aesthetic so much more when you have 20 soldiers all stacked right next to each other, and you move them. You had the
big movement trays.
The movement trays, and you'd just be like, brr, 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 and then you do like these mad flanking moves, and when you see those movies, and they're like, whether it be even, I mean, they do it currently now. I mean, it's obviously digitally, where they've literally got a big board, and the generals are sitting there moving you see it in Game of Thrones and stuff like that, where they're moving the pieces, and it feels like that. It felt like that when you played it, and you actually. I think that's the difference. I felt like a general. Like a legit general, like someone sitting in a tent, and you were like, "Oh my god,"
Well, that's a big thing for me. For why I play things other than 40k sometimes is that. 40k is great. I love playing 40k. Models are awesome. Rules are good fun. It's great. But sometimes you just feel like, I want to play something that feels different and plays differently.
Definitely.
And that's fantasy. And I mean, to a lesser extent, a lot of the other specialist games they do now. I quite enjoy Underworld's Warcry and Kill Team. Because they're all different to 40k and they play a bit differently. Kill Team sort of course, played very similar to 8th edition 40k, and the new one looks like a lot of fun. I'm keen to get right into it. Then Underworlds with your deck building, and it's a proper board game. And Warcry being a slim down version of sort of AOS, but with some really, really interesting twists and mechanics to it.
Warcry is pretty much just like AOS Kill Team, right? Is that more
Not
like
really. It's more like the current the new Kill Team is to 40k. Warcry is to Age of Sigmar. It wasn't the same way that last edition of Kill Team was like 40k light kind of thing.
Yeah. So sorry, not Kill Team. I meant to say Necromunda. It's more like Necromunda, right?
No, it's not Necromunda either.
Okay.
Again, the current version of Kill Team from 40k is what Warcry is from Age of Sigmar.
Right.
It's you use those models, but it's just the way the interactions and the activations work are different enough that it feels different to play.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people
fast-paced and pretty intense.
I've heard a lot of people speak quite positively about Warcry.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm aware there are currently several issues with Warcry as far as the competitive scene goes, and people are talking about one issue or another with missions and so on and forth. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not playing at that level. I'm just when we're allowed to, I've got a few mates around and we play some Warcry. It's good fun.
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about now in that sense. Like, I guess we should have probably prefaced the whole conversation rather than we're not looking at any of this as a competitive deep dive.
We're not looking at it because I'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, overall, all these games that we're mentioning in today's podcast, it's not from one perspective. It's just from as a whole approach, encompassing all the positives and all the differences to 40k and to, I guess, to maybe more or less to Games Workshop products in general.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose the last thing about Games Workshop I'll mention before moving into the next bit, which I think will be interesting, because I will come back to that competitive point. Age of Sigmar, I've got a bunch of minis for it, and I am interested in playing it, especially now that 3rd edition's come out. But by the same token that I've been talking about wanting to play different games because they're different and they're interesting in different ways, Age of Sigmar 2.0 felt very much like 40k right? 8th edition.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm aware there are a bunch of differences, and I'm sure there are massive AOS fans that will hear that and just want my head on a platter.
Rage quit.
Yeah. but as far as the way it felt to play, at least when I was playing it, and maybe for one reason or another, it just felt like playing 40k. I'm like, well, the game itself doesn't interest me that much. The models are cool, and I definitely still painted a few, but at that point it's like, oh, I'll paint some for Warcry. I'm not interested in committing that much time to a game I'm not enjoying the game itself.
Of course. Yeah, that makes total sense. And to be honest, I don't think much has changed. In terms of obviously...
Third edition, by the looks of it, has changed quite a bit.
As in,
maybe
like,
it's
comparative...
from 40k.
As in, it is quite different from 40k?
It looks like it has, yes. The battle reports that I've watched makes me go, oh, I'm actually interested to play this game.
Oh, that's
because
good.
it's changed enough of those core mechanics that makes me go, oh, that's going to be interesting and different to play. It's not just going to feel like a slightly adapted version of 40k.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting. I mean, I want to play it just to actually see what it is, and, you know, I think the models are... Whoever's sculpted the models for them should be paid a lot. And move to 40k, it's just crazy. Like,
the models are amazing. Like, the creativity and, like, freedom and fun that there's clearly having with the models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you don't design it. We're not going to get into it. Never mind. Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting that you mentioned the competitive point of that. Because, yeah, absolutely. All of these that we're going to talk about today, for the most part, we're not talking about from a competitive standpoint, and we don't have that depth of knowledge. And I definitely don't have the depth of knowledge for it, but I am interested in playing Ninth Age competitively and have...
Well, didn't Ninth Age come out of the competitive 8th edition, right? Like,
it did, yeah. So So for anyone listening who's not aware of it, Ninth Age Fantasy, or Ninth Age Fantasy Battles, I believe it's called. No, that's not right. It's Fantasy Battles in the Ninth Age. It's gone through a couple of transitions. When GW just squatted Fantasy, which, as I was alluding to earlier, was right about the time I was getting into it. I'd just finished putting together about 2,000 points of dwarfs, and I'd ordered my very first Tomb King models because I was really excited to start that army.
Yeah.
GW squatted Fantasy and rebooted it with Age of Sigmar, and then along with it squatted the Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Which were cool.
I'd ordered the models, and before they'd, like, online, because I was anywhere to buy them, and before they'd arrived, they'd been squatted.
That's shattering. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure there have been many people in this similar sort of boat at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it just sounds like a very common thing that Games Workshop does, or has done.
Yeah. But anyway, the point is, they squatted Fantasy, and then a bunch of people who really enjoyed Fantasy went, well... And look, let's be honest, the Age of Sigmar release wasn't particularly polished, and the rule set wasn't... there was no balance in the rule set whatsoever, given that there was no mechanics to balance it by.
What? Games Workshop releasing flawed products? No! I never thought that would have happened. What do you mean?
So a bunch of fans said, well, why don't we just keep playing 8th edition? Or make our own version. And instead of that being the usual sort of flippant, well, why don't you do it yourself? And people sort of go, yeah, fair play, and keep going. People kind of went, well, yeah, why don't we do it ourselves?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
And they actually said, all right, let's make a fan-made 9th edition. And that very quickly morphed into 9th Age, which is entirely legally distinct from Warhammer Fantasy, and for many reasons.
So when this kind of came about, sorry, because I didn't really literally know nothing about this. Like, I mean, I know it because we've spoken about it. I know it in passing, but I don't know the details. So was this like, kind of like, I'm trying to draw a parallel to what I know within 40k or within gaming, with tabletop gaming now. So would that be like the ITC sort of similar situation? Like how that was birthed was sort of the same.
Kind of. It's not dissimilar, but it's more complete, more wholesale. They basically took, like, the 8th edition rule set and went, alright, well, we can keep playing this, but given we're not following GW's rules anymore, we can fix it.
But coming from, I guess maybe rephrase my question, coming from where? So was this born out of the US? Was it born out of the UK?
Europe in general, I believe.
Right.
I'm not sure if it was the UK specifically. And look, I don't know in detail enough about it, other than the general strokes of what happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's enough.
I believe it was mostly European driven.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
Because I think a lot of the competitive fantasy scene was over there.
Well, it sounds like it's come out of a competitive driven people, because the casual player is probably just going to go, oh, whatever, I'll just now play AOS and not care.
Right. Yeah.
It's more the hardcore player.
If that's what people want to play, go nuts, right? Have a good time.
Of course, yeah, 100%, yeah.
But at the time, I think that was, the response you're having now, which is, well, most people would just do that. That's most of the response, and I assumed at the time, hearing about 9th Age, I'm like, well, that's grand, but there's no way that this fan-made thing is going to stick, right? It's going to kick around for a while. People are going to be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's just get on with playing AOS.
And look, 9 times out of 10, you'd be right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You'd be putting your house money on that bet every 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And it
when
just
was
so
the
happens
last time
that
you played the fan updated and thing version of 5th edition 40k? It exists. It's out there.
Yeah. See, I would happily play like a revised 3rd edition. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Again, I'm fairly sure a 3rd edition exists as well. Someone's done it.
I didn't know that, so I want to find that now, and I want us to play that.
but in all seriousness, I sort of dismissed it a bit and didn't think about it for a few years.
And understandably,
this was back in 2015 when Age of Sigmar launched. I have done a quick Google. 2015 was when that launched and when all this went down.
Yeah.
And then in like 2019, so 4 years onwards, I happened to get a really good deal on a bunch of Tomb Kings someone was selling on a Facebook group, and I sort of went, well, that's all well and good, not there's anyone around playing 8th edition. And then I looked on Facebook a bit about it, and I found out there are a bunch of people, quite a large community in Melbourne, playing what is now the 2nd edition of the 9th Age.
Of 9th edition.
Yeah. And
it's
so,
like 9.2, right?
No, it's 2nd edition, or
No, I know. Yeah.
What had happened was that 9th Age had stuck around. It had taken off. People had started playing it. They'd essentially taken the 8th edition fantasy rule set and then built on that and sort of just fixed it and tweaked it. And what had come out of 1st edition into then the revised 2nd edition, which was what's currently out there, was a set of full army books that were incredibly well balanced against one another. Because there was no,
I imagine too.
Yeah, so all the rules for this were free.
Yeah.
They were fan made, and because there's no drive to sell models, there was no reason for any given model or anything to be
broken. Yeah.
Broken. So, and people spent a lot of time and a lot of effort balancing all these army books against one another, and in a core rule set that I'm gonna say it's a little simpler than it's been a long time since I've played 8th edition fantasy. So maybe not any simpler, but it's definitely a bit tighter and a bit
well, better. Just say it's better,
look,
right?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's better.
Yeah.
It deals with universal rules with far less bloat by having far fewer of the rules and just allowing them to cover more things.
Refining the idea, right?
Exactly. It's all about refining that idea, and again, born out of a competitive scene. It's quite a competitive game. Like it's tight. It's very well balanced. It's designed to be played casually, obviously, but it's designed to be played competitively, which I think only helps the casual scene because it means the game itself is easy to just pick up and play.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I've played that. I've attended a tournament with my Tomb Kings with it, which are now, of course, the legally distinct and separate Undying Dynasties.
It's weird. It's weird, right? Because it's not like the Tomb Kings were an OG faction either. They weren't. They were brought in like, I'm gonna say 2003 or 2004.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's OG. That's like, I wouldn't have.
Since
I
what,
wouldn't have been old enough to
1980?
understand what that was.
Yeah, but I mean, okay. Look, yes, you're not wrong, but compared to 1987 or whatever, like,
yeah, of course,
and it's I gave you a lot of models. Well, I didn't give you a lot. I gave you what?
Yeah, no, you did.
20 models or something.
When Locky and I, just after we first met, actually, you gave me a few chariots and some a bunch of archers and skeletons and some characters, I think.
Yeah,
I've painted up several of those.
I loved them, man. I think that even if they re-release that in Age of Sigmar, which I know they won't because it's they've got their vampire range for it, which is also amazing. I loved them. They were cool, man. The Egyptian, it was just epic. Yeah. It was epic.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, yeah, it sounds like this was. I mean, I can't believe it was around for 4 years. 4
Yeah.
years, and then it's like,
There's a huge Melbourne community. There's a huge international community.
so who runs it? Is there a governing body that runs that?
I mean,
Like
that's an
again,
excellent
like an
question.
ITC kind of thing.
I mean, I can point to specific people in like the Discord
right.
chats and stuff. I'm not really active at the moment because I'm just busy,
fair
but I'm
enough.
present in the Australian New Zealand Discord for it, and that's always there's always stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, but it's quite big. There's tournaments and things run for it as well.
I mean, that's the ultimate, right? Like, realistically, speaking from a person who's worked on games and designed games,
Yep.
and obviously in all those games, I haven't had a financial vested interest in it. So, my opinion is going to be a little bit biased here regarding this concept that I'm bringing up. But the idea of creating a product that is then built on and advanced, by your audience. Like, they love it. It's the same thing with with Counter-Strike, right? So Counter-Strike became Counter-Strike because it was a mod done on Half-Life. And then Valve was like, wow, this is amazing. Then they bought it off them and was like, cool, let's make it a proper game. Made it a proper game. Look what Counter-Strike is now, right? Same thing with Dota. Exactly the same thing. And I think it's such a great, it's such a great thing to have and see happen in real time, that kind of growth of a product or growth of a game or growth of an idea. I think it's amazing. And especially to band that many people together and have something work, across continents and facilitate a functioning game that's designed and maintained by people, not by one controlled governing body that has no financial interest in moving it forward. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like a movement, right?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's certain people involved with it, but there's no. I think they're, and I don't know precisely where they are. I know there were talks about it earlier in the year, or late in last year. There were talks about releasing some of the army books in print and charging for them, but purely as an optional. They were because as I said, all the rules are, it's model agnostic and all the rules are free. So you can use whatever models you want. Model size is defined by base size, and line of sight is defined by bases and particular terrain features.
Same as 40k, right?
No, because 40k you use true line of sight.
So how does that differ from what you were saying?
Line of sight in Ninth Age is drawn in a straight line across the board, from base to base.
Right.
As in, if you can draw a straight line from one bit of the base to the bit of your opponent's base, regardless of how big, small, tall the model is, and then model height is defined by what model it is. So model is either like small, medium, large.
So it's the OG. It's the OG 40k rules.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But all the rules are.
I can see your horn, therefore I can shoot you.
Yeah. So there's none of that going on. It's all, if I have a chariot, which I believe is a large model, it can see over certain kinds of terrain and it cannot see over others. Large models can see over small models. Large models can see other large models and stuff like that.
Yes, I gotcha. So is that more of a ground level thing rather than a general level thing?
Exactly.
Like it, yeah.
And again, this is all designed to work at a competitive level.
Yeah. Again, which is why it's probably why it's been so successful.
It probably is. And I'm browsing their website right now, and I'm looking at all of so there's magazines, artwork, books, there's supplements and supplement games, supporting material, all the extra like game aids, cards, coloured and card summaries, all that kind of stuff, erratas, FAQs, all of the army books for like all the old fantasy races, as well as like the Chaos Dwarfs and other squatted ones. All of that, all for free, downloadable. Yeah.
So the community is really strong.
Yeah, it is. There's also, and that was what I was going to mention, was there's 5 books so far that have been done with full color versions. Again, still online for free. And there was talk about it. I'm not seeing anything about it here, but there was talk about doing a print run for books, and as like nice hardback books, the same as old GW Army books, but doing it purely as an optional. You pay for them because obviously they're selling something, but it wouldn't be done as here's the only way to get the rules. It's just if you want a nice, book full of artwork and that sort of thing, there you go. Well, it is by now. They have their own lore and stuff around it. They have pretty much everything has alternative miniatures to GW.
So this is.
Yep.
It's, Total War.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no way they would be able to sell. Here is the Tomb King's Army book with Cetra the Imperishable, and here are all the GW models in it. But they can sell. Here's the Undying Dynasties with their own quote unquote unique background and lore. With with all of these other models that we have full permission to use from those other companies, and all of these rules that are. It's not Cetra the Imperishable. It's I believe it's a Pharaoh on an Exalted Chariot or something along those lines.
Gotcha. Uncopyrightable words.
Exactly. Yeah. Essentially.
Yeah.
But
gotcha.
At the end of the day, that came out, and I have a great time in that game. I've got Tomb Kings, I keep mentioning, dwarfs. I've still got them around and bought a bunch of war machines and stuff for that last year that I'll eventually get into.
It's so weird, right? Like I loved Dark Elves back in the day. I loved the fact that they had repeater crossbows. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And the thought of having like 15 guys or girls, women, men, whatever, with repeater crossbows, all like launching, 20 arrows with insects. You just imagine, it'd just be crazy. And like, but I can get on board with fantasy elves. I can't get on board with space elves. It's the same thing with the dwarves. I get fantasy dwarves. I get why people like it. Chaos dwarves, I'm so for that. That's right up my alley.
Yep.
40k or space dwarves, get out of my life. Get away from me. I want to have anything to do with you.
It's hilarious because I'm the opposite of that. I've got Drukhari, Eldar, and Squats.
I know, right? I just like
dwarfs in fantasy.
I was like, nah. And then the whole room is going. Anyway, no, don't talk about that.
Anyway, but yeah, and so I play that for a variety of reasons. I play that for a more competitive experience than playing 40k, and you can say whatever you like about it. It is a more competitive game.
Well, it's designed by the people who were successful in it, right?
Exactly.
So of course it's going to be a better game.
And to function at that level, and it does that excellently.
That's good.
And it's different to 40k. I can set up for a game of Ninth Age and play an entirely different game, and as you were saying, like feel like a general because it's all about movement and shifting and stuff. It's a bit more. They've managed to pull something off, which is that fantasy. One of the big complaints with it was that while all that was true, it also meant that the game was usually over in turn 1 or 2, and then turns 3 through 7 were often just mopping up. And it's in like you're just playing it out. By that stage, you've already figured it out. Ninth Age manages to balance that really well. I've never found that I've played a game, unless I've made some like horrendous deployment errors, where turn 2 I'm like, oh, I've lost this game, and now we're just going through the motions. I've always, even as a not necessarily a great player in it, always felt like I'm playing the game. There's always something in it, without it being arbitrary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want those like chess concedes going on.
Yeah, of course not. And that's even being, as I said, I took the Tomb Kings to a tournament, and I believe I even won one of those games. But
I thought you were going to say you won the tournament. I was like, how do I know this? I was like, are you serious?
I won an Age of Sigmar tournament with the Tomb Kings rules, although, it was a local like GW game day thing. But yeah. But that doesn't really count because those rules were broken while they were still around.
Yeah, right.
But no, I think I won one of the games against someone that I've played a few times. I'm not going to bring up too much here. Plays Dark Elves.
Haha, you know who you are. I mean, I don't know who you are, but you know who you are.
Yeah, no, he's a good bloke. We've traded wins and losses back and forth a bit.
That's good. It's almost like you and me.
Yeah, kind of. But yes, I play that for that reason. It's different. It lets me get away with having massed ranks of skeletons just sitting there and getting back up. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the community side of it is just amazing. Really, like, just like I said, it's more of it sounds like a movement, or it is a movement, rather than a. And I think community drives, again, not going to get into what GW is doing with their community at the moment, but community is so important to a game. You see it, maybe not so much in video games, because I know definitely some companies try to build a great cohesive community with their video games, and I think with.
But it's more something that happens than a company can choose to build.
Oh no, I'll disagree with that hugely. No? Okay. You can 100% build a community and actively build a good, positive cultural community by how you how you interact with your fans, how you integrate your products, how you listen to your fans. 100%. That is. It might seem like it's a natural thing, and there are aspects of it that definitely come naturally, but a community. A positive community most of the time will start from, or can, it mostly does start from what the company does to integrate with that community.
Right.
And then also like the maintenance of it. Sometimes you hear about a certain community that's going really well or whatever, then all of a sudden it drops off, and I think 9 times out of 10 you can actually trace back to the origin of that community, i.e. the game developer or the game itself doing something wrong by the community or not supporting them in the way that they see necessary. Now, I understand that obviously big masses of people can get crazy and can go down a line that's not the right way to do it, and we've seen, especially in video games, a very, very bad trend of that. However, reading between the lines, and that's what people are paid to do in those big studios and those kinds of places. I mean, you could even argue the shift of 7th to 8th edition 40k was for the community.
I mean, having played through that, absolutely, and I think people talk about the game changing between 7th and 8th, and that's definitely true. But the support that GW's shown for the community and for the rules with the constant FAQs and erratas, of course there should be more of them and they shouldn't have to happen, whatever. The fact they're doing it at all is such a massive change, and makes it more playable.
And I think because a lot of people weren't around for those days, I would say 50%, and this is not a real fact, this is it's not a real number, I would say the 50% of the current player base has no idea what we're talking about, in terms of has not experienced that. That's how much I think, Games Workshop has grown. But, there are other games and other companies out there that handle community, just tip-top.
Yeah, I think the one last thing I'll mention on the community note for Ninth Age, just while I've had the thought, throughout the whole COVID pandemic across the world, because again, it's a big international community, it's still going strong. The community hasn't dwindled much. A lot of that's got to do with, you can play Ninth Age on the thing called, I want to say it's Unending Battles.
So like a TTS kind of thing?
Kind of. It's even more abstracted. It's literally you're playing with coloured squares, like the old White Dwarf battle reports of fantasy.
Right.
But people get right into it, and there's big online tournaments that run all the time, and they haven't slowed down in COVID.
Well, if anything, they probably went up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then even with that, throughout COVID, in the Melbourne group and the Australia-New Zealand group, there've been plans and talks of tournaments and all sorts of things going on. I'm currently not really participating very much, but I'm supposed to be in a slow grow league that's just like, look, we can't get together and play, so let's build and paint and support each other doing that for however many months it takes till we can get back to it. So the community for that's been really good as well. It's another really big draw to any game, really, is having that community, and in this case, the community supports itself, given the community is also supporting the game. But as Locky was mentioning, it just shows what the community can do and then if you take the company behind the game supporting it.
I mean, you're just doubling down at that point, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, Infinity does an amazing job of integrating its community to its game.
Oh yeah, Corvus Belly doing.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Infinity. So it's what Corvus Belly do, but their community.
So Corvus Belly is the development company, like their equivalent would be Games Workshop, and the product being Infinity, the game, and they have multiple games. It's not just when we mention Infinity, we mean Infinity N4. That's the 4th edition of the Infinity main game. There are 5 other games that Corvus Belly makes, which is within the Infinity universe.
There's Aristea, Defiance,
Tag.
And Tag.
The Tag race. There's 4.
Off the top of my head, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's 4, and then the role-playing game.
Right, yeah, of course.
There's 5. Okay, the role-playing game we'll just exclude because it's not necessary. I mean, it is.
I mean, anyway. it's adjacent.
It's adjacent. Anyway, and that's on top of, and that's not the point. But I just mean that, like, you know, they're in the same. They're not in the same numbers, i.e., fan base, exposure, everything that Games Workshop is. But in terms of the products that they support live, they're pretty close. They're pretty
certainly
close.
Getting there. And I mean, yeah, they don't support it to the same level that GW does with, like, you know, weekly releases and all that kind of stuff. But
they don't need to.
But there's that support there for all of these games, and there's a huge amount of communication and transparency.
Massive. It's
with the release of
new models. It's probably one of the best ones.
There were several factions that didn't immediately get updated. Now GW being the big black brick that it is, if you're, and I mean, I've seen this happen. You know, Dark Eldar went 4 editions with no updates. If your book didn't get updated, or rules or whatever, it just didn't get updated. There was no, you had no idea if they were ever going to. Maybe they do it next week. Maybe they never would. You just wouldn't know. And while they're a bit more forthcoming about what they are bringing out, they're certainly not giving us any sort of long terms. Oh, don't worry, all this is coming or anything like that. No, you'll get it when you get it.
Yeah. Well, it affects their bottom line otherwise.
Well, yeah, it does. But I mean, Corvus Belli at the release of, I'm going to say it was N4, it might have been Code 1, basically came out and said, look, some of these factions haven't gotten an update here.
No, it was Code 1. So, because when Code 1 released, it wasn't all the factions. Yeah, it was only.
I don't think it is yet. I think it's still not all of them.
Or Nomads and Ariadne only just got put in with this latest Operation so Crimson Stone or whatever.
So it was Code 1. But they basically came out and said, look, we haven't got all the rules for it. Because turns out, it's really complex to write all these rules. It's just going to take some time. We are working on it. Don't stress, your models are still good. Not only that, but you can keep using your old rules in this format here.
Yeah.
And that sort of transparency means that, as Locky was saying, I guess that's that community support.
I mean, that on top of, you know, if you went now and followed Infinity the Universe on Instagram or Facebook or Corvus Belli, you know, they post, I think it's monthly or quarterly or bi-monthly posts on models that are coming out, and it's not like, oh, let's see a mad promo action video trailer. No, it's the mesh. Like, they send the 3D mesh as an image going, this is what it is, and it's like the concept art of the color schemes and stuff, and I couldn't believe it, man. I'm like, this is the stuff that I saw when I was working for a game studio, behind the scenes stuff that they're just publicly showing people, which is great. I'm not saying this is bad. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing it from a development point of view, where they're going, hey guys, this is coming, and then at that point it doesn't matter when it's coming. You don't care. You know, you just know that you get it. I mean, look, I was pretty bummed because my faction wasn't getting any super cool models. I got like one kind of cool model, where your faction got some pretty awesome ones. And then I went through a bit of a massive recall and it happens pretty regularly. You know, when they're adding new models and they're adding new factions. And this is the thing, again, the game system is different. Infinity is more of a skirmish game rather than a what do you classify 40k as? Just war game, I guess, right?
Just a war game at this point.
What's the classification? So less models. Maximum Infinities play with 15 models, no more. So they're only releasing 1, 2, max 3. On the rarest of opportunities, 4 models per faction a month, or every 2 months. Again, 2 months annually, biannually, whatever. So it enables them to be able to do these things, and then connect with their audience from that regard. But also their competitive circuit affects the overall game, like the overall product. And that is
of course.
so cool. It's so cool. Do you want to talk about that? That?
I was so excited to see that. So I was reading through the N4 core book, which is their main
current edition rulebook.
The current edition lore source book. So the current since N3, the 3rd edition, they've come with, which the rulebook for I have over here as well.
Nice.
They come in a box set that has a core book and a rule book, and so the core book is your source book for all the lore, and the rule book are the rules to play the game. And so reading through the N4 core book, and seeing they're telling the narratives of what's going on in the Infinity universe, and specifically in the quote unquote recent events up to the current setting of Infinity. And they've got little blurbs about where this lore comes from, and so the way that parts of the story were laid out was that the competitive events and tournaments and the circuit for that year, the season, that's what it's called, would affect the story. So the competitive season for I can't think of which season it was, but that outlined that such and such a conflict was going on, and certain factions and characters specifically won and lost, and certain characters lived and died based on what happened in this competitive season. And then the next competitive season, the story for that was based on the outcome of the previous one, and then that further evolved the same characters along that story arc.
So cool.
It's really cool. I mean, one of them even mentioned that the ending of that specific of those characters in that story arc was essentially chosen by the winner of that competitive season, because they were his characters that were doing that.
And I mean, even on top of that, really cool. They do it where and look, I don't know how often or how much they've done this, but I've seen them discontinue models. I've seen models on the store that they're they set a date on the store. They go, as of this date, you're no longer going to be able to get this model anymore. And obviously that implies that it's no longer going to be supported, and it's not a data sheet or whatever. But they have fully embraced. The rule set is free, that you can download. Go to
another one that has a full
Infinity of the Universe right now, and you can download the rule set for free and read it and have fun reading it, because it's a big complicated rule set.
It's like a 200-page PDF or something.
It's a complicated game.
It's a nice book, well laid out. The PDF is easy to read, and it's absolutely free. And they do sell the rule books themselves in hard copies.
Yeah.
So you,
as you said, they come as a pack now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But that's just the thing. We've spoken about it before about designing a game in the modern time, right? And then these are just the things you have to do. And look, it started in 2005, so we're not talking a game starting in the 70s here. We're talking about a game that's starting in the modern world. So of course it's going to be you'd expect it to be a modern approach. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be successful. Simple as that. But it's still good, and it's still a good difference. The lore is crazy different. We're going to be doing lore vids on Infinity.
We've got a bunch of stuff in the works for that.
Yeah, it's something that we actually really quite like. It's more closer to home. It's only set 170.
180 years in the future.
178 or 180 years in the future.
Yeah.
But really, very, very heavily reliant on cyberpunk themes.
Yeah.
Cold War themes, espionage, and then again that throws back to the skirmish style game.
Yep.
It's just the mechanics are great. It's a complicated game. It is much more complicated than 40K.
We're not going to fudge words around it. It's complex.
Yeah, it's a hard game to learn.
Yep.
There is definitely a much steeper learning curve. Even if playing the games that we've played, comparing it to all the games of 40K I've played in my life period, it's probably the most complicated game I've played.
Yeah.
No, I don't play it. We don't play it to the extent that you can play it, and that's just us playing it at our level because there's just so much to take in.
And there are more accessible ways to do it, of course. Code 1 is a much simpler rule set to get into it. So they are providing. They're fully aware that they're producing a complex rule set.
Yeah,
and they are providing.
And that's the thing, right? They lean into it.
Ways.
They lean into it
exactly, and
they know what
the
they
other thing
are.
I'll mention with the complexity of it is none of the complexity feels out of place.
No,
I
100%.
have yet to read a rule
yep.
and go, this feels arbitrary. Everything
Even
I've
the
read
stuff...
goes, I understand this. This makes sense. You've got your core mechanics and you've built off that, and all of this fits together to simulate the style of combat you're trying to represent.
And even on top of that as well, even in the sense where some stuff you go, oh, this is busted, or this could be potentially broken, based on how the core mechanic systems are and because of how the game is structured, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain what I mean.
You get the sense reading it that the people that write the rules understand the game.
Yes.
Which is not something you always get from 40k.
I would say you rarely get from 40k.
You do get it sometimes, but
that's what I'm saying. It's on the rarer side.
Yeah.
If being honest, not so much in later books and stuff, but yeah. And there is definitely a very key the number one feature I think that Infinity stands out between most games. Corvus Belly stand out compared to most other companies. I can't speak to Maelstrom's Edge because I don't really know too much about them, but compared to say Star Wars and actually a similarity in Ninth Age in this regard, but compared to more Star Wars and 40k across the board, is there's a clear, definitive goal with everything that they're doing. So one decision affects everything else, and there is a goal of what they're trying to achieve with every decision that they make, and it all kind of like a cohesive unit moving together.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a massive Infinity fanboy. I haven't been part of the thing. There's probably someone out there that goes, dude, you're talking out of your ass. You have no idea what you're talking about. The company's cooked. Maybe. But from someone who's getting into it and getting into it now and seeing what it is, it does not feel that way. It feels balanced. The game feels like it knows where it's going. It's building towards something even bigger. It's growing at a slow pace. They're about the game. They're not so much about money.
Yeah.
The positives,
they clearly are being a company, but they definitely emphasize the quality of the game as important as a part of that. Well, the other big thing that we're doing with that as well, as you mentioned, is these lore videos, because the lore is very different to 40k, not just in the content, but also how it's approached. So as a very quick, not an overview of the lore itself, but as a quick primer as to what we're talking about. Infinity happens over like 9 planets, 12 planets maybe, not very many.
It's it's not a galaxy
spanning universe. Yeah. And Infinity is a very small one. And as Locky mentioned, 40k is 40,000 years in the future. Infinity's 180.
Yeah.
Right? It's within 200 years. Potentially our kids would be alive at that stage in time.
Yeah.
Like it's not far. But and this is something that I've talked at length to Locky about, and one of the reasons that I get excited about reading the lore for it. Because the overall span of the lore is smaller, every bit of that can be explored at a much greater depth.
Yes.
It avoids the whole Planet of the Hat syndrome, which is one of the biggest things that bug me in a lot of science fiction. 40k kind of gets around it as well, because of the way they've set up their... Anyway, but that's another discussion for another time. But Infinity gets around that. I can I can spend, and I'm about to start on Paradiso, but spend days reading lore about a specific planet. Not only that, a specific continent on that planet and how it interacts with the different factions and stuff within it.
Well, I think on top of that, it's the fact that it's actually fleshed out that way too. It's actually done, and that just speaks even more volumes. Yeah. And the other thing is, the Infinity Universe is set more or less in a Cold War state.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if anyone knows much about Cold War history, real Cold War history. The depths of crazy stories that existed from like 1969 to 1999 are bonkers. It's stuff, if you ever get time, go and check it out. You'll be like, this is made up, and 100% tell you it's not. Like, there's been some epic stuff, and they, obviously it's not to that extent, but in terms of the freedom that they've designed themselves and put themselves in a situation that has given them immense freedom to write lore, systems, characters, worlds, whatever they want, and it not be out of the realm of possibility for them.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's just really good. It's I literally cannot fault it. I can't. Yeah. I literally can't fault
it. It's a very refreshing change from 40k. And again, like, I love 40k and I love the lore and the depth of it. And it's a great change to take a break from that and go, I'm going to read something entirely different and with an entirely different aesthetic to it. Yeah.
And don't forget, you can always just come back to the ridiculously dystopian death and destruction. And you know what? More often than not, probably closer to real world situation that is 40k.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's always there. But yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, we've mentioned a couple of times, we've got a bunch of stuff for Infinity coming out very soon. We've got a lore podcast in the works, as well as a few other projects and plenty of minis coming out, including a bunch on the way from Dice Arcade.
Yes.
Currently, I think you've just like ordered a bunch more nomads and stuff to do your.
I ordered a whole army, so I've got the equivalent to run like a full 300-point army of nomads. So
nice. So you're jumping in feet first. I am.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like 14 models in total, 14 or 15 models.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
So that'll be pretty cool. I've got a few things on the way myself as well. Speaking of which, we'll let Tim give you a quick word about Dice Arcade, and we'll be right back.
DiceArcade.com.au. All the biggest brands of miniatures and wargaming. Free postage over $250.
Thank you for that, Tim. So yeah, make sure to check out Dice Arcade and use the code RiskyRollers for an extra discount. So yeah, moving on from all of that, the other big games that I've played a fair bit of are in the Star Wars universe now. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I have been for many
likewise.
years. Predates my interest in 40k for sure.
Yes, I think we all found Star Wars. I think everyone found Star Wars before they found Warhammer.
Yeah,
I'd be very surprised if there was someone out there who found Warhammer before they found Star Wars.
But yeah, so of course Fantasy Flight Games released several miniatures games for them a few years ago. X-Wing being the most popular one, of which I've played a grand total of I think 2 games and have zero interest in playing.
And that's the dogfighting one, right?
That's the dogfighting one.
Yeah.
I get the draw. People want to beat X-Wings and TIE Fighters and all sorts of stuff. For whatever reason, never clicked with me.
Yeah.
But the other space-based one they do is Armada, which is done with all pre-painted minis, and that's your space fleet scale one. A standard game of Armada, you might have like a Star Destroyer and a few smaller cruisers, or the Rebels can have their terrorist rabble ships as they run around. I'm clearly an Imperial player. But that's your space battles. In much the same vein as Battlefleet Gothic is to 40k, that's what Armada is to Star Wars. I've got a pretty sizable Imperial fleet, including the Interdictor class Star Destroyer, my all-time favorite class of Star Destroyer. Nice. From the old canon through to the new Disney one, of course, as it reappeared in Rebels. I was so excited to see that. But yeah, so through to that one. several of which I've repainted, and swarms of tiny little TIE fighters that fly around doing all sorts of stuff. So Armada's, in concept, very different to 40k. It's space. It's...
So is there any parallels between Armada and Battlefleet?
I mean, yeah, the concept is essentially the same. This is the space fleet battles.
Yeah.
It is in the same way that, Battlefleet, Gothic, or Dreadfleet were to 40k and Fantasy, respectively.
Yeah, of course.
Armada is that space battles. And one of the things I love about Armada... You mentioned earlier that playing Fantasy made you feel like a general.
It's the same. Yeah, Gothic's the same.
Armada gives me the same feeling about Star Wars. I've never felt more like a commander on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, or like that kind of feeling, than playing Armada. I've got my custom painted flagship, the Sanguine, and that's...
Is it red?
It's black and red.
Of course it's red.
Yeah. Of course, it's called the Sanguine. What do you expect?
Exactly. I know. It was like it's like oh, it's green, man.
It's bright yellow. No, but I've got that one and a bunch of like Raider class corvettes and all sorts of stuff. And you're sitting there. It's incredibly tactical. The whole activate, you decide several turns in advance what your actions and sets are going to be, and you actually set all of this stuff up in dials and systems they've got. Plays entirely different to 40k, and it's
obviously.
Yeah, it's incredibly tactical. You've got to be thinking 3 turns ahead of your opponent as well, and they're thinking 3 turns ahead of you.
So do you have to do resource management in terms of like shield management and energy management and those kinds of things?
There's shield management and speed management, that kind of stuff. All of your so it works on an order system where you can order your ships to do different things.
So it's similar to the Infinity system of orders?
Not quite. Every individual ship you have has its own... They're order dials. They're little grey dials that have 4 options on them. Mm-hmm. And you can look at the dials, you set the options, and then you turn them upside down and put them at the bottom of a stack of dials. So at the start of the game, you might... So for an example, a Victory class Star Destroyer might have 3 dials. That's your sort of... your actual Destroyer class Star Destroyer, right? That fits into the Destroyer role. You might have 3 dials, and at the start of the game you set all 3, and then that's your first 3 turns of orders.
Right.
So you have to be planning turns and turns ahead, and there's ways to manipulate
that's kind
that
of cool.
kind of stuff.
It's very like chess-like.
It is, yeah, and I mean, you're aware of what you've got set for future turns, but you can't change what you've got set for future turns except in very specific circumstances.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's the way the core game works. You've got to be thinking about the mid game when you're playing the game.
Yeah.
You've got to be anticipating your opponent's moves. And again, all of this plays back into the way I imagine a space battle would feel. You are reacting
it's more of an
on
actual...
a massive delay.
Yeah, it's more of an actual war game, right?
Yeah, again, it comes back to that idea of, I think it very, very elegantly moves along the simulation to abstraction axis. As I
I getcha.
It very elegantly moves along towards simulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because, I mean, all your ships have a movement value that they're stuck at unless you plan turns ahead to be adjusting your movement. You can't slow your ships down quickly.
Yeah.
like your stuff is moving.
Yeah, gotcha.
It takes a long time for ships to speed up and slow down, which is a huge part of the game.
Which is, real.
Yeah, absolutely. Weirdly enough, Armada feels more like space combat than watching space combat in Star Wars movies.
Yeah, well, granted there isn't a lot of it, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I think maybe to be honest, that's probably why people like X-Wing more, because the space combat in X-Wing, in the movies, is usually much more. Exactly. Yeah. It's dogfighting. It's dogfighting style.
Yeah. I mean, I'm well aware of why X-Wing's the popular game. And that's fair enough.
It's only the third one where you really see big space battles. The start.
Yeah, I think so. And then, I mean, since then we've seen it a couple of times in live action and a bunch in the animated shows. But
you do lose a little bit of that attachment when you jump to the animated.
A little bit, yeah. Not as much as you'd
medium.
imagine, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's not as common, so it makes a bit of sense that, and it's slower. Fast-paced stuff is just where people want to be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Armada's a slower-paced game, but it's very intense. I don't play it nearly as often as I want to. It's a fantastic game.
And then Legion.
Yeah, so Legion is the ground-based version of Armada.
So the 40k equivalent.
Ground-based Star Wars game. It's the 40k to Armada's Battlefleet Gothic.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that is, your stormtroopers and your rebels and your droids and your clones and all that kind of stuff.
And the bounty hunters. No, there's crime syndicates they've just released.
They've just announced.
Which is really cool. So all of you like Boba Fett loving fans out there, or your Star Wars: The Old Republic Han Solo fans out there.
Yeah.
That's what when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I might actually want to play this now because that was really cool.
Yeah.
Being able to make a character like Cad Bane, I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty awesome.
So Star Wars Legion. I mean, look, it's very easy to say, oh, it's Star Wars 40k, and to a certain extent, the fact that it's Star Wars 40k is enough to get people to play it.
But mechanically, it's so not.
Mechanically, it's very different.
It's so different. And look, to be honest, every single game that we've mentioned, Star Wars and all their ones, Infinity, Ninth Age, 40k,
they all have very different mechanics.
So different. Like Infinity is drastically different from 40k.
And I mean, they all.
This is one of those things that makes them great. Is that you're not getting this carbon copy anywhere in any stretch of the imagination. Like even the way their turn structures are done are completely different.
Yeah.
Corvus Belli is designed completely different to the way GW is designed compared to Star Wars, compared to Maelstrom's Edge, which we'll cover in a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just don't have the time to go into them right now, and we might. Let us know if you want
there's
us to
one
go.
In particular that you'd like us to go right into, because I mean, I could talk for an entire podcast about almost any of these. So
yeah, easy. I mean, Infinity, we're going to be doing many, so
Well, yeah, of course. But so Legion's got this entirely different setup and the way its activation for its activations through to the way that models work and units work, and it's all entirely different. And then at the end of the day, you paint stormtroopers. That's awesome.
I mean, and
that's the big thing that drew me to it in the first place. Just going, well, it's Star Wars.
But it's not just stormtroopers, bro. Like you can paint Darth Maul.
You can paint soon a couple of versions of Darth Maul.
Yeah. You can paint. I guess the biggest difference with a lot of these games comparing to 40k is that 40k's level of customization is probably in a league of its own.
Yes. Yeah.
And none of these games even remotely come close to that. For example, Infinity is all metal models.
Well, I'm going to say Ninth Age is probably more customizable, being model agnostic.
Oh yeah, okay, you said that. Yeah, that one is for sure. Yeah,
but that comes from the Games Workshop philosophy of
itself. Yeah, so it's kind of like a little
of customization,
baby brother, baby sister, whatever, however you want to sort of
kind of yeah. But you're absolutely right. Like the rest of these, they don't have the same level of model customization, and for that matter, like the role playing elements of building your model, giving it war gear, and going, that's the stuff that model has because that's cool.
And look, I think potentially, obviously, Star Wars is very difficult to do that because they don't design it that way. Infinity is very similar because they don't design it that way, i.e. their models are metal, and that's a deliberate design choice.
Yeah.
But you don't go there for that. You don't go to Infinity and be like, I want to customize these mad nomads. That's not what the purpose of you going to that new game system is for. So that's another thing I would probably say to anyone who is looking to transition. Go into any game outside of 40k with an open mind, and don't try and take what 40k does into that game system.
That's a good point, actually.
Mentally.
That customization was something that threw me a bit when I started looking into a lot of these other games. particularly in fact Star Wars and Star Wars Legion, going into it going, well, I'm gonna, because from Armada I can sort of just generic, there's a whole bunch of generic things for it, so you can just sort of do your own thing with it, and I've got a little bit of Star Wars stuff about my own little fleet that's kicking around doing its own thing, and that sort of thing, and going into Legion going, oh, there aren't options, you just take that character and you've got those characters. And it was only relatively recently in the life of the game that they actually started releasing generic commanders and stuff for factions.
Yeah, right. Well, and then they're definitely doing that now with the whole Syndicate thing, right? Because they're really kind of branching into that whole...
It went from if you want to play, the Empire, then you bring Darth Vader, Tarkin, or, some named character. If you want to play the Rebels, you have to be bringing Luke or Leia or Han, or one of the others.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not until recently they've started branching that out, and there's still not necessarily the customizability. And I don't think there needs to be. It's not doing that. The 40K.
It's funny. It's funny because it's an inverse, right? I mean, 40K started the other way around. It started with generic characters, and then you got named characters added.
Legion has a setting. Star Wars is established and well explored.
And that's fine, right? That is what it is. That's the situation they're in, and they're designing a game around that. Yes. Totally understandably. Yeah. And they're trying to find the best way of doing it. And look, I hope that they find their way of doing this with this Crime Syndicate thing, because that was always the reason, when I played Star Wars The Old Republic, that's why I always played like a smuggler or like an operative or something like that to gain that level of personalization. Yeah. But like I said from the beginning, I think it's just really important to don't go into these games going, I want to make my own custom thing, because
it's not necessarily the way those are set up to work.
Exactly. Yeah. All of them have their own different things as to why they're being created and what they're created for, and that's what's try and find what that is and see, like, does that attribute to you? Like, do I actually want to play a more complicated game? Yes or no? Well, if you don't try and play Infinity. If you don't enjoy complicated games, don't play Infinity, because you're not going to like it. If you want to relive your, you want to play something simple and relive a system, a game that you, stories and characters you really like, go play Legion. Yeah. Legion's not that complicated. It's not that hard. Compared to 40K, it's a bit more similar, and it's relatable. It's easy. You're probably more likely to get your partner or your friend or your buddy into a Legion than you would 40K, because trying to say, hey, what is the warp, or when someone says to you, what's the warp, you'll be like, how much time you got, bro? So just like anything, know what you're getting into to a degree, and control your expectations, because I think control in everything. We're going to get philosophical now, but in all aspects of even life, you control your expectations. You can limit. You can increase the effectiveness and the positivity, and you can decrease the negatives. So it's just one of those things that I hope that anyone listening to this goes, man, I want to try all these games. But if you are going to try one, do your research. Look at what you're getting into, and go from there. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's really about finding something that you enjoy, and at the end of the day, that's all it is. If you enjoy it, they're just games. They're just games, guys. Yeah. I mean, it always comes back to that perspective. We're pushing plastic soldiers around on a table. Like that's it. Yeah. And lastly, we said we were going to talk about this one that probably a lot of people don't know about. Yeah, probably never heard of. So Maelstrom's Edge is definitely the smallest. It's probably. I'm going to say it's even smaller than Ninth Age, because Ninth Age had the I would say 100% of fantasy. So Maelstrom's Edge. So for anyone who's been in the hobby for any length of time, will know the Daka forums were for quite a long time the place to talk about 40k and other games, but mainly 40k. And the people who were on Daka had been there for years and years and years. Since second, third edition 40k, there were a lot of veterans from around there. When the internet was provided via dial-up for all you people born in the 2000s. Just Google it. What is dial-up? Epic.
Yeah, but anyway, anyone, or pretty much everyone in 40k will know Daka forums.
Yeah, I mean, even me coming back, I know what it is.
Yeah, and the people who ran those forums decided that they weren't necessarily too happy with the way 40k was going, and this would have been again around 6th, 7th edition 40k.
The big bad time.
Yeah, and I mean they'd obviously been working on it since like 5th, 6th edition, at least, if not longer. But they basically came out and said, "Look, we're actually going to make our own game." You know, one of the things that they enjoyed about 40k most was like the 3rd edition, like the smaller scale, that back and forth skirmish sort of rule set. And they went, "Well, let's make our own," and they did. They kickstarted it back in whenever
2014.
2014, I feel like I want to say.
15. So I would say that's where it feels like, right?
It was around then, yes.
Yeah.
And they formed a company called Spiral Arm Studios, and they kickstarted the game Maelstrom's Edge. It's probably at the bow wave of the current oversaturation of tabletop game Kickstarters. Because
what do you mean? Not now?
No, as in like, if you look up like tabletop games on Kickstarter, they're everywhere.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like now it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I'm saying these are probably at the bow wave of that.
Bow wave, as in the start, the beginning, opening the floodgates. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. Like right at the forefront of that.
English good, not I do.
before it became super oversaturated.
Yes, gotcha. Cool.
But not long before. I think one of the biggest things that they did was kind of prove that it could be done through Kickstarter.
Yeah.
They came out and they came to Kickstarter with a finished product, and they said, here's our game, here are all of our models we've designed for it, here are the physical boxes we're producing, and the Kickstarter was there to take it from a small production into a mass production thing.
Well, it's kind of, at that point, it sounds like it's more of an advertising platform rather than a proof of concept platform, right?
Right.
Proof of concept advertising.
Yeah. So, I mean, it definitely, they needed the Kickstarter to take it from something they'd made into something they were producing and selling everywhere.
Yeah. So it's like having a publishing company.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So they came out with that, and I jumped on board. It was actually my first foray outside of Games Workshop. Because at the time, this is before I'd gotten into the 9th Age. I was probably still collecting dwarfs for fantasy and Necrons for 40k, and loving life and all that. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna check it out. See how it goes. I liked the model concepts that they were doing. The lore and the story they had was quite interesting. You could definitely, like, it wasn't entirely distinct from the 40k
setting.
Shall we say, not the aesthetic, but I guess the setting style of that. You know, it's far in the future. It's humans doing all this kind of stuff. But it felt a lot more of a hard science fiction setting than 40k is.
Well, 40k is probably as loose as you can get.
Well, I mean, Star Wars.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so it came at it from a bit more of a hard science fiction point of view, and design philosophy. And the models came out, and a lot of the models I looked at and went, "Oh, that's a pretty cool idea. That's pretty neat." And the way that they designed them all with the hobbyists specifically in mind, and going, how can we make this model easy to convert, paint, all this kind of stuff, from a beginner through to a seasoned hobbyist. So I jumped on board. I bought backed for the starter set for it, the Battle for Zycanthus starter set, and got fully on board with that. And to this day, I have yet to play a single game.
Really?
Yes, so I've never played a full game. I built all the models and then just didn't, at the time I was nowhere near any sort of gaming group, let alone someone who's going to be like, yeah, I'll try this weird game you've kickstarted.
It feels very, to try and describe the aesthetic for someone who is maybe listening in their car or whatever, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, yep. That's
Think Battlestar Galactica. Like, think of just a tabletop game, a world built in Battlestar Galactica. That's just even the art style, the aesthetic. It's 100% that.
If you can imagine like a 70s sci-fi movie, that's what
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Literally, that's it. Battlestar Galactica. That's all you need to like. Yep.
Yeah.
Or Farscape.
Yeah. The example I use often to describe the aesthetic is The Expanse. There's a lot of shared design language between the TV show of The Expanse and
actually there's I think that dumbs down The Expanse a little bit. I'm a big Expanse fanboy, so I love it. The books are amazing. So also Firefly Serenity style
purely for the design aesthetic of the models and the design of a lot of the TV show costumes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Particularly the Pyrion
for sure.
things.
For sure. Yeah. I can see that. So and then also like the art style of stuff is very Firefly Serenity.
Yes. Yeah.
Even Defiance to a point, maybe a little bit. Less alien and more of the human side of Defiance. For those of you who know what Defiance is. Anyway, moving on.
But yes, so that came out. I backed it, and if you've been following me on Instagram, you'll have seen that I've painted up almost the entire Pyrion half of that by now.
And Pyrion, they're a faction, right?
Yep. So the Pyrion Foundation is one of the 4 factions. So there's the Pyrion Foundation, the Broken Collective, the Karist Enclave, and the Aterian Remnant. And they're basically.
I was going to say, what's a quick rundown on them? So you've got...
So the Pyrion Foundation are your mega corporation franchises. So you've got the big mega corporation of the Pyrion Foundation, and they franchise out to different...
Facebook, right?
Sorry?
Apple, Facebook.
Yes, but if Apple and Facebook were in the business of terraforming.
Cool, and had military.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have a set military, and the rest of their stuff is all... And this is one of the things I most enjoy about it. It's all like robots and stuff, and then your quote unquote human guys, especially in the starter set, were engineers. They weren't soldiers. They were there fixing robots.
Oh,
and then they just sort of get caught
cool.
up in what's going on. So they're contract engineers. They're brought in to help fix robots and so on, and they end up because it's a pretty volatile setting. They are often having to be in live combat zones, so they're armed and they're kind of trained. And then you've got the SecDef, which are their actual military arm. And they're sort of contracted out, and different franchises have different numbers and styles of them, but they're the actual like military security non-robot forces.
Feels very like realistic in the sense of where modern warfare is going and heading, and the idea of a fully mechanized military is I wouldn't put it past us. Even real life now in 100 years time we'll have a fully mechanized military and drone controlled and everything.
Yeah, and there's some fascinating mechanics that work with the rule set for how that works, and the contractor engineers essentially being able to fix the robots and affect the way they function on the battlefield and so on.
And then the Broken, what are they about?
The Broken Collective were the first faction outside of the 2 in the first starter set to be released. The Broken Collective are
then what were the just backtrack.
Yeah. So the Karist Enclave were the
okay, yeah, that was
faction.
the other one.
They're like your religious zealots. They're like a big religious order, kind of like I've immediately blanked on what one of the big real world inspirations were, but kind of like the very sort of
Catholic Church.
No, not quite. It's all very secretive and very
Scientology. Mormon. It's Mormons.
Yeah, kind of a mix of Mormons and Scientology, but also then a weird mix of like Eastern, like Buddhist aspects and that sort of thing. they're kicking around, and they have access to a bunch of aliens that they can tame and throw around. A specific breed of alien that's like a big shape-shifting thing.
Yeah.
So they're more of like your classic
Big
sleek
bad.
neon sci-fi troops.
Yes. Yes.
And they've got some really... I mean, I'm a big fan of some of the way they've got armor and weapon design.
No, initially, again, I'm going to come back to this. It's very Battlestar Galactica. Even the Karas, they look like Cylons.
Yep. One of them
Like
has
human
a
Cylons.
like a radiation cannon or whatever it is. It's literally like an 80s sci-fi radiation gun with like a half a plate glued to the end of it and like a stick pointing out of the end. It's amazing.
That's hilarious.
It's fantastic. Like it's exactly the kind of thing you would expect in one of those like a Battlestar Galactica thing, and it would come onto the screen. They'd point it at you. It'd go woo, 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 and then you guys would sort of freeze up in the air and fall to the ground.
The black and white rings would just be like
yes, that's exactly what it is, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
The focus microwaves. Let's get that guy over there.
It's amazing. Yeah, so that's the Karas Enclave. And now the Broken's probably the most creative that they've gotten with a lot of their models.
Definitely.
They're a bit more recent, a lot of the sculpts there. And they're like the masses. The masses fleet. The whole universe is set up around this big disaster that's going on. And these are the refugee collective that's fleeing. And trying to band together. The Pyrion Foundation, they're a corporation. They're all about their bottom line. These guys are all the people that get left behind.
Oof.
It's a fascinating concept, and some of the books and lore behind them is actually really, really compelling.
It's very real world, right? I mean,
it is. I'm seeing all of this and going, this is all sci-fi stuff, but it's all very, very close to home. Like,
yeah,
it's all very, very real. And model-wise, like they're based around these infantry packs that are like collections of humans and aliens, infantry bodies and heads and arms and all sorts of things you can mix and match. They're all about customization and variety.
Think militia, jury-rigged weapons, minimal armor, a lot of clothing, leathers and straps and camouflage ghillie suits, that kind of style. Like that's the general army aesthetic that they're going for with that, which is cool. It's a great contrast. It's a great contrast to the main two, the good guy and the quote unquote good guy, the quote unquote bad guy.
You've got the industrial functional Pyrions, you've got the sleek sci-fi Karists, you've got the dusty
rustic, the rustic Australian underdogs.
Yeah.
There you go. They're the Australians of the Maelstrom's Edge universe. Broken.
Yeah, of the Spiral Arm. And then you've got the Arterian Remnant, which are your super sleek, advanced, high-tech battle suits.
They're the best. They're so cool.
They're
the
Locky's
coolest.
favourite.
They're the coolest models. Like by far, they're so awesome.
And they're incredible. They're some of the most recent ones they've done at all, and it really shows. The sculpts are clean and sleek. They're fully posable. I think every joint in those models can be posed.
I think of like Klingon armor. It's very Klingon Star Trek Klingon armor aesthetic.
You've smoothed Klingon armor.
Yeah, but I mean more in terms of like the pieces. So there's a lot of like jagged edge pieces. It's like jagged armor.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe like Easterlings, Lord of the Rings. That's actually probably closer considering
that's weirdly better. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who are into that and know what we're talking about, we're nerding out pretty hard here right at the moment. I think we've talked about a lot of.
I mean, we're in deep with this podcast. If you're sticking with us.
Yeah, awesome. Go nuts. And it's cool, they're big. They're these, I imagine they're probably like 9 or 10 foot tall.
Yeah, they're like twice the size of a human.
And they're mechs, right?
There's people in them, but yes.
But they're a mech suit.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, there's a bunch of lore about them as well. And from memory, the reason they're in these suits whenever you see them is because they can't survive in gravity properly anymore because they spent too long out in space.
It's so cool.
Again, the lore behind this like takes a lot of really cool hard science fiction concepts and runs with them.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the things that really gets me into it. And then you've got a bunch of books and audiobooks that come with them as well. And
I saw that. There's actually quite a few. I mean, they've got 6? There's 4. Sorry, there's 7 audiobooks.
7 audiobooks and 4
printed
novels.
Books.
Yeah,
and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. They've got some pretty big name authors involved too. You've got Stephen Gaskell and Tom and L. Martin for a few of them.
For those of you readers out there, woo. I mean, I don't know. If
I think Stephen Gaskell's probably the biggest name there. He's written for a few other big universes as well.
Yeah, right.
But I can absolutely recommend the books. They get right into it. And there's as I was saying, there's some really really compelling lore around a lot of them. And that's really what keeps driving me back towards it. Is I'll reread something or hear something from the lore again and go, oh, that wants me to be back in that universe doing stuff with it.
2012 they started.
2012, right?
Because their copyright's till 2012. From 2012.
That would be it then.
Yeah. So they've coming up. They're coming up their first decade. So they're doing.
So that's something to point out is they're not huge. They're big enough that they're self-sustaining and they keep bringing out new stuff and they're making money.
And we'll link links to all these games in the show notes. By the way, we so should have said that before because probably no one's going to listen at 1 minute and 42 seconds. Sorry, an hour, 1 minute and 42 seconds. An hour and 42 minutes. Jesus.
Yeah. That's fair. I suppose at that point I should breeze through the next couple of notes I had on them, which were the rule set. I haven't talked about the rule set. I think it's one of the tightest skirmish rule sets I've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
It's again coming back to that Infinity thing. It's more complicated than 40k for fewer models, but none of it feels out of place, and it has one of the best psychology mechanics I've ever seen in the game.
Well, this one makes sense, right? Again, it's the same concept. People that existed in a previous game fed up or for whatever reason
it doesn't
banded together and came together and made a better
it doesn't
system.
Play like 40k 3rd edition. You can see the inspiration for the scale and
but I do think that's a natural, and that's one thing that I will say, speaking from game design experience, is that you have, especially if you have a team of more than 5-10 people, you have a natural progression of change. It just goes that way. It's why I always find it quite interesting when games released and they're more or less a carbon copy of a previous, which is it's very rare, and it's why the second of every game is always better than the first. Always. It is very, very rare that a second, StarCraft 2, Destiny 2. Well, actually, that was a really bad example. For a period, Borderlands 2, whatever. You can just literally go through the list of iterations because they're the same team, same groups of people, with more people building on the same systems. It's very weird that you have it in films where seconds are always worse, but in games seconds are always better.
Yeah.
And it's usually because of the same-minded people working towards a collective goal. And it's if you're saying this rule set is tight and it's good, and it mirrors the Infinity structure of we have a clear defined idea of what we want out of the product and that, which is it's just good. I think we've harped on a bit about Maelstrom's Edge a little bit more than others, but
we have
they're smaller, and I think if people are looking for something different out there,
it's a personal little passion of mine. Is that it looks like such a good game. I've seen it played on battle reports, a couple of battle reports. I've read the rulebook a few times at this point to try and go through and understand it all. And every time I read it, I'm like, I've got to play this. It looks like so much fun.
Well, we will be doing a bat rep on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll get those cars painted up. And they'll definitely be showing up on camera sooner rather than later, I hope.
Mm.
But I'd love it if, and it is. It's a little bit of a smaller studio than any of the others we've talked about, and I'd love it if it did show up and make have a bit of a surge in popularity here or there.
Well, I think it will. I mean, it's just a matter of time. You know, we spoke at the start of this whole thing that people are, and we know that people are looking for maybe not to leave Games Workshop,
But just to expand, broaden the horizon.
yeah. You know, the whole concept of tabletop gaming and RPG games and board games are no longer taboo. They haven't been taboo since Iron Man was put on the big screen in 2008. Really.
Right. Yeah.
That was, I think, where the real big shift happened, and it enabled these things to be, you know, hit the limelight and be not, you know, deemed to be bad / nerdy / whatever. Call it what you want. Who cares? Which is just good, and we just need to feed it. And I think it's better the more. And that's the thing, you know, the more types of games you play. It's like the same thing in 40k. The more armies you play, the better you become. The more respect of it, the more you understand. It's just like anything, you know.
Yeah.
As much as like you want to become a better 40k player, you want to become a better gamer. You want to become a better understanding of like how these structures and systems work, and maybe a better strategist or whatever. Go play other games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it one of the best ways to do it?
Absolutely.
And speaking of, I know you want to talk about the psychology mechanic of Maelstrom Village.
The psychology mechanics is really good. So it's all built around a suppression system. Okay, very very quickly. Whenever units shoot at each other, instead of necessarily doing direct damage and being like, all right, you're hitting and killing guys. It takes as a basic thing that what you're doing is more so just putting bullets in their general direction. You're not necessarily going to be bullseyeing headshots every time. And what that means is a squad, when it gets shot at, takes suppression. And there's really cool little tokens that come with the game that are like little 3D, like little blast, like things that you can put next to them that look really cool. But
yeah.
The idea is that you take a certain suppression value when you get shot at. You can, of course, take direct damage, but it's a lot harder to do direct damage and wipe squads out than it is in 40k. But they take the suppression, and as a unit gets suppressed, as there's bullets flying in around them and picking off beams near their heads, they stop being able to do stuff. They can't act and react in the way that you might be able to in 40k. And in what I tend to feel is a really realistic sense, you know, they can move and become
pinned.
They can become pinned, but also pinned is an existing state in the game that they can move into. But even if they don't get to that level, it reduces what you can do. They have to move into cover, or you know,
it limits their functionality.
Exactly, yeah, and it does it in such a way that it doesn't just eliminate them from being a part of the game. Which is something that psychology mechanics can go too far with, which is that you can like psychology a unit out of the game, and then
40k morale system.
So it doesn't. So when you're the controlling player, it doesn't feel like they're out of the game, but it does feel important, and it can be a lot more important to put some suppressing fire onto some units than it is to actually do damage to them.
Of course, which like it is in real warfare.
That's the thing, it all makes a lot of sense when looked at like that, and it makes it feel really good to play. Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the way they've done the psychology, and then also as a lesser extent the way it's worked in throughout the rest of the rules. I mentioned earlier that the engineers have a really good mechanics to interact with the robots. One of the things that they can do is remove suppression from them. And then robots react differently to suppression, obviously being robotic.
I was going to say that's a bit weird,
but
I wouldn't have thought of, because it's fear, right? It's more or less is what you're talking about.
Not necessarily. It's its own thing. So you take suppression from being. I don't want to go too far into it, but you take suppression from being shot at. Robots will react differently to it. It's not the same thing where they get afraid and stop doing stuff. Direct damage is far more effective against them than suppression. But they still get shot at, and they still there are certain things that that happen to them. And one of the ways that the engineers affect that is by removing suppression and interfering with what they can do in response to that. And I like the way it's all integrated fully. They don't have it doesn't feel like there's a wasted mechanic. Which is something that can happen when you have something that is specifically tied to fear and psychology. Well, robots ignore it. All right, but that's a waste of a mechanic at that point.
Yeah. But we're coming back to the same point of sounds like a well-designed system.
It does.
And I'm not going to talk about the big bad, but there is a big game that we all love that is not well designed in any stretch of the imagination. It is love it, but it is a god awful game from a design point of view. It's still an amazing game, but anyway.
But I suppose I should wrap up a bit. If you're still with us, wow,
well done.
well done. Thank you for sticking with us. Or just letting us play while you've wandered around doing other stuff because you forgot to reach for your phone and turn to something else. All the games we've mentioned will be showing up on the channel at some point. Infinity more so, or probably sooner than the others. But
100%. Yeah, I mean, Infinity is going to be a it's going to be a huge mainstay on the channel.
Yeah, for sure.
More than the others. The others will show up, but
I'm definitely keen to get the others on there. But
the channel will focus primarily on 40k and Infinity. Infinity has just sparked something in Dalton and I that's just
it really has.
It's hit us just like 40. I mean, for me, it's just hit me like 40k did, back in the day. So, it's just that same level of I want to be part of it.
Yeah, and as a reassurance, this is in addition to our planned 40k content.
Yeah, of course.
We're not going to be sacrificing the 40k that you've presumably come to want from us to do these other games.
No, in addition.
It's just in addition.
Everything's in addition.
We just want to be putting out more and more of it.
Mortal Wounds in addition. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening
this long. Even if you weren't this long and you're doing this as a part 2, whatever. Thank you. It's great. It's really good. Have you listen. Join the Discord.
Jump in the Discord and chat with us about what other games you play. We haven't mentioned a whole swathe of games, of course. I cut War Machine from the notes for this pretty early on because I just went, there's too much to talk about.
Battletech's there too, right?
Battletech's up there apparently. We've got someone who's just come into the Discord who's just brought it up and saying, I'm keen to have a look at it. So that's all coming along there. And of course, closer to the GW circuit, we've of course got a bunch of Kill Team stuff happening very, very soon.
Yes.
You will have seen us hyping that up on Instagram a bit, and in the Discord. That's all coming very soon. As soon as we can film any of it.
Which we think is November.
Fingers crossed. Touch wood.
Fingers crossed is November.
Emperor be
praised.
Praised, yes.
Yes. I think we just hope that the hive mind can bring their shadow of the warp and knock our politicians out from making bad choices. Let us out. So we'll be back as soon as we can, obviously, and thanks for being a part of what we're doing, and we'll see you on the next one.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye.